I'm changing. We're live on YouTube. That work. What am I doing with Greg before I start?
He's good.
I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, and then I'll start the interpretation in a second. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm calling this meeting to order. This is a special board meeting, which means we won't have all the presentations that we normally have from superintendent and different members of our staff, because it's a special board meeting. This is a public meeting of the San Mateo Union High School Board of Trustees. If you wish to make a comment about an agenda item or during the public comment section at the beginning of the agenda, please send an email to comments@SMUHSD.org. That's COMMENTS@SMUHSD.org with your name, email address, and your Zoom name if it's different, so we can find you among the couple hundred people already attending, and the item under which you'd like to comment. I, the board president, will call on you. Please note that comments are limited to 3 minutes, and I may increase or decrease the time allowed for public presentation, depending on the topic and number of persons willing to be heard. So Suyan, just repeat that, and then I'll start we're going to have Spanish interpretation.
Hola, buenas tardes. Vamos a tener interpretación en español y si pueden escribir su nombre de usuario de Zoom y al nombre de correo electrónico que él anunció.
Okay, are you ready? I'm going to start you to interpretation. Okay, it's available. Start interpreting, Suyan, and see if it works. I guess it does, otherwise we'd hear from her. So roll call, Mr. Land.
That was interesting. Yes, present.
Yes, next on the roll call, Ms. Lees Dwyer.
Present. Oops.
Next
present.
on the roll call, Mr. Hanley.
Yes. Here.
Mr. Griffin.
Present.
And I'm present. It's not on the agenda, but we should do a pledge. Kevin, can you lead us?
Yeah. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need to correct, it is on the agenda. I was mistaken. The pledge was on the agenda. We now have approval of the agenda, something that's been added. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So
I make a
moved.
motion to approve.
So
Second.
moved.
A move by Greg, seconded by Bob. Greg, Mr. Land, how do you vote?
Yes.
Linda, Ms. Lees Dwyer,
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Hanley,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So the agenda is approved 5-0. Public or governing board comments. We have no public comments on non-agenda items. Is that correct, Ms. Chalkley? You haven't received it?
That's correct.
Okay, I'm going to run around in the board. If you have any comments, remember our time limits. Mr. Land,
No comments at this time.
Ms. Lees Dwyer,
No comments at this time.
Mr. Hanley,
No, I have nothing tonight.
Mr. Griffin,
I don't dare say anything. Thank you.
and I'm with Mr. Griffin. Moving on, consent agenda. Because we have there's 2 items. Because we have a public comment on J2, that is automatically polled. So it's J1 is the item we're looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Lees Dwyer, second by Mr. Land. It's the consent agenda, which solely consists of item J1. Mr. Land, how do you vote?
So I'm voting on the consent agenda minus J1, correct? Or minus the
No, minus J2.
J2. Yes. Then I vote yes.
I have a comment on J2, no grand jury report. We're voting only on the board policies 6145. Ms. Lees
Yeah.
Dwyer,
Yes.
Mr. Hanley,
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
And I vote yes, motion carries 5-0. Item J2, approval of the response to the grand jury report on hated schools opportunity loss. Ms. Stella Hunt would like to make a public comment. You have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking.
All right, good evening. So I read through this very carefully, and I just want to say, I feel like there's just one thing missing. The preventative measures. I think just one glaring thing to me is, I feel like there's an assumption that the children that arrive to the high schools, they're showing up with bias, or they're not showing up with bias and prejudices, and that's not true. They are showing, I feel like you feel like the weight is just on the high schools, and it's not. They are showing up to you that way.
Mm-hmm.
The elementary schools and middle schools have got to take some responsibility for this, and you are taking it all upon yourselves to fix a problem, and the kids are unlearning these things with you, when really we need to work together as elementary schools and middle schools. So under preventative measures, there should be something that we are working together. It is so much harder to unlearn something like prejudice and bias. Then it's not like, reteaching a concept in math. That is something that you can do it in high school, right? You can reteach math and literature and things that they didn't get in elementary school in math. But to unlearn something, it's just such a huge weight that you are taking on. And I just feel like we need to work together, and we have to pool our resources. We have to pool all the knowledge we have gained and work together. And that's just something I felt like was so glaring in this. Why are we not working together? They didn't show up all of a sudden as freshmen and be like, I think I'm gonna say something racist, or I think I'm gonna have a bias. It started when they were 3. And of course, parents are part of the issue and community is part of the issue, but we are doing something wrong as well. And my colleagues might not wanna hear it, but something is happening in our schools, in our elementary school districts and our middle schools. And we have to take some responsibility and some burden off the high schools. So I'm asking you to include us in this conversation and call us in. And I'm saying we, I'm speaking for, maybe I shouldn't, but I am. I'm speaking for all the elementary school districts and the middle schools. Please include us in this conversation. We need to work together. We want to work with you. Well, I want to work with you because we need to. We have to take some responsibility. This is not all on you. I see it every day with my youngest learners. It's starting with our youngest learners. I feel like the problem will be so much easier for you down the road if we work together now. Let's take some proactive steps, please. I just think it's so important that we do this together. This is a community problem. So much of the problems we have in this country is because we are not working together. So I'm offering a hand to the board. Please pull us in, and call us out. Call us out. I'm calling you out all the time. Call us out, please. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have this item in front of us. Does anyone want to comment or make a motion?
I'd just like to make a comment. I appreciate Ms. Delahunt, your comments. This feels a little bit like some of the conversations sometimes we have with elementary districts about, say, curricular matters. Oh, if they only sent us kids that were, better at math, we wouldn't have such a hard job. And I think we have to own what we want, we own, and go from there. I think your point is well made. I still would like the board to approve this tonight with the expectation that when we come back and do this work, that you see elements of cooperation between us and the elementary districts.
Good point. Mr. Land.
Natalie, thank you.
Right.
I was seeing you on Tuesday. I couldn't say anything when I was there, but at the board meeting, I saw you. I do want to say this. It goes to what we were talking about before with community. It is about community. It's not just about the high schools. And I'm glad someone spoke up and said that. So again, if it's not in what we're approving right now, that's fine. But in the notes, I want to see that we are going to work with our communities and with our partner districts, because those are partner districts, and that's what we need to do. So thank you.
So can I suggest you make a motion to approve the document?
Yes.
And put in a comment outside the document that we instruct the district, improve the document and instruct the district to work with our partner districts on this
I see
issue.
Linda's hand up. I'm going to let her do that.
Linda, yes?
I have a comment. I think we should put a sentence in that says we intend to engage with our partner districts to address this on a community-wide basis. We only need one
Do you know where
sentence.
that sentence will go?
Go. Second.
I think.
Yeah, where's it
that-
go? Just, you can make a motion, just, I'm trying to move this along. Tell us where that sentence goes, and I would have no trouble with that. Where in the
I could
document?
go at the end. It can almost let somebody else figure out where to put it. The sentence is an appropriate sentence.
I see Natalie has the document. She will tell you what subsection to put it. If I
Could
if
you
I
just
had my
read that?
glasses
What
on.
is-
You're on mute,
subsection?
Natalie. You're on mute.
Under administrative responsibilities, it says C, preventative measures. It can be the last bullet point, right? The district will work with the local elementary school districts to further this
Okay,
bond.
thank you. Does
The
Linda
term
want to
we-
make that motion?
Without
To
just for the
approve
being,
it
record-
and add that bullet point?
The term we use
Linda,
is
do you want to-
partner districts. So
Bob had a comment. and-
Yeah, I got a
Bob?
question, and it has to do with the vagaries of dates. And, we have two key dates here, and one of them is the fall. Well, actually, there's 3 or 4 key dates. One of them is the fall of 2020, which I'm not sure when winter starts, but I'm not sure what exactly the fall of 2020 means. And then the other one, I think it was the spring of 2020 and the spring of 2021. What is the intent of those dates being vague like that or broad?
well, in the recommendations, they gave us some dates that we had to do certain things by. And that's what's driving our work.
So what you're intending to do is comply with their dates.
Yeah. I mean, at a minimum, yes.
Right, where it says by fall of 2021 or by fall, that means by the beginning. If it's at the end or during, we have during the fall. So that's during the fall semester. But by the fall semester, that would be at the beginning. Our intent is to do it at the beginning.
Okay. It was.
Does anyone
Never
want to make a
mind.
motion,
I got
or do you want to just put this off?
No, I don't want to put it off.
No.
Then make the motion
Just
to do.
kind of sense, but let's deal with it.
Mhm.
Okay, so the motion I think we want to hear is to approve it with the bullet point mentioned at the end of, what was that section, Ms. Stella, Natalie?
It's
Just give me like C1 or, end of-
section 3 under administrative responsibilities, C,
okay,
preventative measures.
There we go.
okay. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the document with the addition under section 3, administrative responsibilities, the final bullet point saying we will work with our partner districts or whatever, someone say what they,
In the community to help address these
Yes.
concerns.
right. So make that motion.
So
Yeah.
that she's just marked, so you know, that's part of our policy bulletin that we've attached to the response.
But
Oh,
that
so
doesn't, that's
that's-
good.
Fine.
More the better.
How about if you say as staff sees fit?
What?
How about we approve it? We approve the letter and instruct staff to add the statement that Greg is just going to make as they see fit, wherever they see fit.
Look, that's fine. Making a motion to include that we include working with our partner districts and our community to help resolve the situation. That is got what we need to have in there.
So we approve it and add this sentence.
Yes, fine.
Yes, Linda?
We don't put it in the back somewhere. We put it on the face of the document, not in
Fine.
some addendum, extra piece, policy. We put it on the face of the document.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the difference. Not in our policy bulletin, you want it in the response.
It can stay in the policy bulletin, but
It can
we.
be repeated, yes.
Front. There's nothing wrong with saying it twice.
Well,
As-
it's not in there
as-
now. She's saying to put it in the policy bulletin in section 3. That's the policy
Well,
bulletin. But we can repeat that in the
or
response.
even further up is what the motion gives you the,
Right,
the-
okay.
The motion that I would like to see passed is, yes, we'll approve the response to include in the response as well as in our board policy as the district sees fit, the sentence that includes working with partners with our partner districts, something along those lines, and the community to help address the situation.
Got it.
Okay.
Do I have a second? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay.
Second,
It's motion by Mr. Land, second by Ms. Lee Schreier. Mr. Land.
Yes.
Vote. Ms. Lee Schreier.
yes.
Linda. Mr. Hanley.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So you have it. Motion carries. We approve the document instructing you to add that sentence. Item K1, Spring Semester Committee. We have 1 hour for this item, hopefully. 1 hour and maybe 3 minutes.
Okay, I think, Julia, are you sharing, who's sharing the document here?
Yeah, I can share.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the last time we met, which was on November 12th, or at least to talk about this topic, we had a board workshop on the 19th to go over that grand jury report as well as do other things. But November 12th was the last time we met. That was when we were in the orange phase, when cases were on the decline. And now we're back with lots of work that staff has done. We have tried very hard to communicate with all parties that we want to be prepared for when we can safely bring students back on campus for in-person instruction. And we want to be ready for that. And when that day comes, we are anxious to do it. And we want to continue to provide the best education that we can. On the 12th, we brought you a report, and you gave us some feedback on that. And from there, the committee met some more, and what you see tonight is the next response to some of the questions that you asked us, as well as other information as we go forward. Ms. Kemke, Ms. Chalkley, Mr. Simmons, Dr. Kemke, Dr. Black, Mr. Simmons, and Ms. Chalkley are going to walk us through this. But we think we have a solid opportunity to talk through this. We have plans to put this on the agenda the next 2 weeks when the board meets, which is on December 10th, next Thursday, and then December 17th. Obviously, health conditions have changed quite a bit since the board met, and some of the hopes that we had in terms of these activities feel more distant now. But we are going to have students back at some point, and when we do, we need to be prepared. So with that, I'm going to turn this item over. I believe you're going to start, Dr. Kemke.
We need to see the presentation on the display.
You know, we're looking at Zoom.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me fix that.
If you want, I can do it. I can.
Can you see it now?
If you're, yeah, that's good. Go to the first page, though.
Hold on. This is. Sorry.
You're not on the first page.
I know. So this is what Dr. Scully, here's the overview of our presentation tonight. So I'm going to talk about the instructional model, and then Dr. Black will go into the update on current conditions and the phases. Brian Simmons, Mr. Simmons will be talking about the plans for learning loss, and then Ms. Chalkley is going to talk about the surveys and other considerations are also.
Could you please go to full screen?
Yeah.
On the PDF.
Sorry. There we go. So at our last meeting, I had presented several instructional models to you. And in the meantime, between that meeting and now, the teacher subcommittee met again, considered more closely each one of those models, and actually reached out to colleagues in other school districts that are open, and got a little bit more information about what it looks like to be open, and they've gotten closer to identifying the AB streaming model as the most likely model that we would will place in the plan. Still some work to do on the details of this. We're going to reach out to some more districts that are doing the streaming model to get an understanding of what we should consider to make sure that it is a strong instructional strategy there. And this is the one, if you remember, will allow for fluid movement between in-person and virtual learning as needed. And then considering that you're going to be virtually streaming students simultaneously with having students in your class, there are some technology supports that are under consideration. The 5th day is still, that's part of the discussion. They're going to be talking about that on Monday just to determine exactly what that 5th day is going to look like. This is the slide that you saw at our last meeting. So it kind of lays out what the AB streaming model looks like. So you'll see the Monday here has 2 different potential models on what they could be. And it's AB, meaning your A students are in your class with you, the B are streaming, the next day the B are in class, the A are streaming. And this allows for a lot of the flexibility. It doesn't require us to change master schedules, teacher schedules, student schedules, because it allows kind of this fluidity between the two. So we see that as the most likely. There are still some key considerations and concerns that we have to work through. If any, we're hoping that this is the plan for spring, and that in fall we're seeing school more normal. We want to get more creative. If we're considering something different, we'd want to get more creative. But with the time that we have and try not to change schedules, this is what we're recommending for fall. Cohort size need to stay manageable. We do anticipate that we just have to do AB model, not an ABC. If more students opt to be in person, we may need to do an ABC just to keep the social distancing requirements in place. We always are considering, as one of our most important considerations, is that students have equitable, kind of the 100% virtual synchronous option. So they must have that kind of option available to them. We need to train students and staff on the safety protocols and the classroom expectations. It's different than normal school. One of the, some of the ideas that are there, clear masks for world language ELD teachers, and so for students that are hearing impaired, because there is concern when you're in person, the ability to hear what the teacher is saying. In-person learning protocols in the event of short or long-term teacher absence. So we know there are going to be situations where that classroom may not have a teacher that can be there in person. So we need to consider who will be staffing that room. And then lunch and break, we're still investigating what those look like. And then other kind of questions that the committee is working through. We want to make sure that if the benefit is the social and emotional, how can we be sure to select the model and schedule that support that goal? How do we support faculty and staff who cannot return to campus? And then we'll talk about this a little later, but how do we support faculty and staff with school age and younger children? We are worried that there may be some staff members that have to make a decision between teaching and childcare, considering those things. So childcare needs and collaboration with our partner districts, how do we support and identifying ways if their children go back to hybrid model? We've been talking with San Mateo, Foster City and others, and at least gathering some resources for our staff to get childcare in place. Looking at anticipated technology needs, so teacher workspaces, setting them up in a way so that students can hear both the teacher, in the class, the students in the class can hear the teacher, as well as the one on Zoom. So Simon Bettis, our director of IT, is already starting to model out some of this. And then also looking at student device upgrades to address access issues. So we know that the Chromebooks for some of the students that are working virtually have not been up to speed. And if those students need to stay virtual, we would like to make sure that they have access. And then there was a subcommittee is what we're calling it, that met on enrichment and then also just orientation for our freshmen, considering the fact that they have not been on our campuses. We need to make sure that they have time for orientation. So when we start talking about the phases, we'll talk about how we'll go about doing that. And then I am passing it over to Dr. Black to talk about where we are today.
Thank you. Over the Thanksgiving weekend, the San Mateo County moved into purple tier. and it went into effect at the start of this school week. What that means for schools is that if you're not already in person and you're intending to launch per se, you cannot do so without a waiver. But unfortunately for high schools, waivers aren't available unless you are a district or school with TK to 6th grade. Therefore, only schools, high schools that are already in session can continue. Those who aren't able to start while we're in purple, the county's in purple. Slide 8. So what the purple tier allows for required and essential programs. Schools are an essential program, so the administrators, staff, and teachers who do come on campus to provide remote instruction and assistance to students can continue to come on campus. School campuses may remain open for various things, including what are required or essential programs like one-on-one or cohort groups, access and support for students and families for digital devices and technology, distribution of school meals, and similar services. Slide 9. Slide 9, thank you. I think you went too far.
Oh, that's it.
All right, slide 9. Yeah, slide 9.
There's a 9 in the corner.
That one.
Next, one more.
There it is.
All right, that's all right. So for the current conditions, the essential and required programs will continue with our food distribution, with our learning pods, with the limited athletic cohorts that we have after school. There you go.
There it is.
The athletic programs now will have no indoor trainings. They're all outdoors, and there'll be no equipment. Our learning pods continue. Most of our learning pods are outdoors. Some are indoor with all precautions taken, but these are essential programs, so we can continue with them. Slide 10. So for reopening, return to reopening to have in-person instruction for students is contingent upon our county's tiered system. If we're in the purple tier like we are, we're not allowed to open. We must wait until we're in the red tier for 14 days. In the meantime, with our learning pods, we need to maintain our cohort sizes and follow the four pillars: restrict cohort mixing, proper social distancing, masking, cleaning, sanitizing, testing, and other safety measures, as is all in place at our district. Next slide. So this is really the meat of our presentation in a lot of regards tonight. And this is the spring semester opening back for in-person instruction in phases. Now, we don't have dates on this slide, but we have communicated dates for these different phases, and I can share them. For phase 1, these 5 programs, these acronyms, are specialized programs. They're therapeutic programs, autistic programs, applied academic programs, adult transition, hands-on academics, and we're hoping to start these programs because of the high need for these students and the services that we're required to provide, and have difficulty providing them with the students maintaining off-campus programs. This phase would begin, we were projecting January 19th, which is the day after Martin Luther King Day. And that is 2 weeks, a little more than 2 weeks after winter break ceases. In phase 1, we're bringing back the teachers of these programs. We would like to bring back all staff. We wouldn't want to just bring back some staff and not all staff. Technically, our current MOU that allows for off-campus instruction ends with the fall semester. So technically, January 5th would be the first day for teachers and staff to come back on campus. We don't think that's prudent. We'd like to wait 2 weeks till following the winter break, and to request for staff to come back on January 20th at the same time as we start phase 1. Now, all of this would be, no, we're still on that slide. All of this, again, is contingent on moving out of the purple phase and a color tier and into the red tier for 14 consecutive days. Phase 2 would be the next phase, and that would also be 2 weeks after the start of phase 1. So phase 1 would start 2 weeks after spring break, and then 2 weeks after phase 1 would be phase 2. And we would start, add in our bridge program for on-campus instruction, which is our newcomer program. Begin Peninsula High School in-person instruction, probably on a hybrid model. This is, by February 2nd. So by February 2nd, we hope that the new Peninsula High School building and campus will be open. And so they would start there. And then various enrichment programs. Dr. Kempke mentioned that we have a subcommittee of teachers and staff working on an enrichment program. And these are programs that might bring back freshman students or certain contingents of student groups and student activities on campus, either in days where we're in asynchronous mode or at the end of the school day. And that would be phase 2. And then in phase 3 would be 2 weeks later, tentatively set for February 16th. All these start days are Tuesdays. And that's when we would then begin the whatever model the spring committee and the negotiations and the board approves on February 16th, that hybrid model that we reviewed just now, where we have streaming both for students on campus and at home. That could start at, we project that to start around February 16th, probably with an AB model 4 days a week, and then 1 day where the students remain at home for synchronous learning. And again, these are all contingent on the tier that the counties are in and negotiations, which we have a next session on December 11th. And of course, board approval, which may happen in the next 2 meetings on December 10th and 17th or in January. Next slide. So in order to reopen, again, we have to be in the red tier for 14 days, and we have to have turn in our application and our reopening plan. There's links to what we have now on the slideshow. We will build that up more as we're planning with negotiations in the spring semester committee and with board input. But we do have a good start on the application, the reopening plan, and a facility safety plan, and that will be communicated, via web directly with parents and students and teachers in a variety of ways. It'll include COVID-19 prevention and communication, how we will respond to cases on campus and the contact tracing, and how we will inform staff and students, and then how we will train and constantly remind students of proper protocols and safety, and along with our staff, and provide all the sanitation, PPE and equipment that's needed for effective instruction and a safe campus. Next slide. And now Laura Chalkley will bring us through with the survey results.
Thank you so much. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the survey that we issued on November 13th. We need to take this with a huge grain of salt. If you could go back one slide. Thank you, perfect. Because we were in the orange tier at that time, and the survey was open for 10 days. It closed on the 23rd, and of course now we're in the purple tier. So the big takeaway, one of the major questions we asked was about willingness or interest in returning to school on campus in the spring semester. And the big takeaway from that is that nearly 46% of families responded that they would somewhat prefer to strongly agree that they want to come back to campus for some instruction. And about 39.5% responded that they strongly desire to somewhat prefer 100% distance learning, with nearly 15% of families remaining neutral. And we did find that our English language learners were somewhat less interested in their desire to return to school. So next slide, please. We also surveyed for willingness for COVID testing, and we found that the majority of families who wanted to return to school would be willing to have their student undergo COVID testing. A very small sliver said no, around 2%. around 17% said they need more information, and then about a quarter said they're not returning. So that would not be an issue for them. Next slide, please. So we also wanted to gauge factors that were important to families in their decision-making about returning to school. So what we did is we asked several questions and had them on a Likert scale. And for the purposes of tonight, we're reporting out on the factors that percentage-wise families said were the highest in terms of saying it's a very important factor, to factors where they were very high in saying, no, this is not an important factor. So maintaining teachers' schedule, students' schedule, and teachers is in the fall, maintaining the same schedule, maintaining the same amount of live synchronous instruction was very important. Flexibility to be able to change between remote learning and on-campus instruction depending on conditions was very important. Consistency of bell schedule from week to week, and then finally peer-to-peer social interaction were all factors that were considered very important by parents. And then the least important or not important factors to parents were access to school meals, availability of the student to work outside the home or provide caregiving for either older or younger relatives, and then access to academic support that could be received on campus due to a disability or other learning need. And now I will turn it back over to, I believe, Mr. Simmons.
Yes, good evening, board members. I'm here just to say a little bit about kind of the ongoing theme that we discussed at our last meeting. In light of our ongoing and significant concerns regarding the underachievement of our students furthest from opportunity due to their disproportionate disengagement in distance learning, we've identified these general set of short and long-term interventions for students to address their learning loss and credit deficiencies. I should say this is not the last of our kind of thinking about this. We continue to discuss and talk through the merits of different strategies and look at other districts and kind of how they're engaged in this, because we are unfortunately not alone in this effort across the region. The first set of supports that we'll provide is an intercession over the winter break that will support our independent study classes, our credit recovery students from the summer who did not complete their classes, and or our English language development classes for some catch-up courses. Second, we're going to provide some extra support and work with teachers on development of plans for having students who pass the second semester receive a passing grade for the fall semester as well, if they had happened to have failed it in the fall. That is a way to address this the fact that students may have lost knowledge or didn't get the knowledge they needed to be successful in the class in the spring. Second, we will third, we're going to provide some evening classes and a more robust, and then ultimately some evening classes this spring and into the fall, and then also some summers, a more robust summer school set of offerings at more school sites than we normally do. That's partly in deference to the possibility that we will need to still be socially distanced in the summer, but also because we think we can provide a more robust program at each individual school site. Next slide, please. And so you may be wondering a little bit about what this might cost. And so these are some of our projections with regard to some of this. So the first chunk of this is regarding the potential reopening costs. So this is really for the spring of 2021. We're looking at a variety of, we've basically done a loose calculation because we're trying to kind of clarify based on what the model is that we end up with, what we would staff. And basically this reflects essentially adding essentially a half of a full-time equivalent certificated and classified person. That's essentially a way to essentially create a budget. Some of that might be staffed by substitutes, some of that might be staffed by people who are here for the spring semester. We're sort of giving ourselves some flexibility by creating a budget that's built around that. We also have some ongoing needs with regard to computers for students struggling with access due to the Chromebook issues that we've identified, and that's specifically the kind of multitasking expectations that distance learning is asking of our devices, is outstripping some of their capacity to deliver the support that students need. We also anticipate some upgraded teacher workspaces potentially, and that's sort of technology, like whether that's microphones, potentially bigger video screens, and some better video technology for teachers than just their normal webcam. given and again, we don't want to get out ahead of this in terms of the ongoing discussions with teachers about what the model will look like. But the idea is that we're anticipating some increased costs to equip our classrooms with the kind of technology that they need. And then lastly is just some continued need for PPE. Specifically, the big ticket item inside this particular item is plexiglass, equipping our classes with more plexiglass across the district. And then lastly, we're anticipating, and again, in budgeting sort of for this potential learning loss, credit recovery costs, something in the neighborhood of about 1 FTE, certificated FTE for the evening courses that we anticipate across the district. And then some continued investment in independent study support, intercession, and tutoring that we're going to be investing in this spring. And then lastly, we imagine, and again, a $500,000 increase in the summer school budget would essentially double the summer school budget from normal. Again, and this is to address the fact that we would be having essentially 4 simultaneously running summer schools as opposed to having one centralized one. And so that's, I believe I think that's the last slide.
Okay, thank you.
So that's the last of our presentations. Obviously, we're not asking you to make any decisions tonight. Obviously, everything's in flux, but we would like to know what your thoughts are on this, what you'd like for next steps. We'll be back here on the 10th. So that's where we are.
Mr. Land, you go first. Unmute yourself. Am I muted?
Yeah, no, I'm muted. I think one of the student members wanted to talk. Do you want her to go?
I was going to get the order. Okay. You want to do the student members first?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do the 2 student members first.
Yeah.
Usually I do them in the middle, but that's okay. Miss Yu.
Hello, Board, Superintendent Skelly, and everyone else in this meeting. Just to say, I'm Kristen Yu. I'm a student board member, as previously stated. My role as a student board member is to represent all of our students in the district. So the notes, thoughts, ideas, and the commentary I wrote down during these presentations are surrounded by what the student input I have been told and my other fellow student board members have been told are surrounded by. So the first thing I want to talk about is spreading info. I did sit in the spring semester committee, and something that I constantly pushed was being able to spread info to students, not only through email and text or through the website, but through actual websites that students are constantly on each day, whether that be Canvas, because we are always on Canvas looking at our dashboards, or whether that be through live announcements, which we have at Aragon, which are basically school announcements given by leadership students or by our video class. This way, students can actually process this information, have a place where they can see it, where it's convenient for them. And so they kind of understand what is going on. They can look at the schedules, they can give more input because we are targeting the schedule to them. I mean, at the end of the day, they are the ones that are going back on campus. They are the ones who will be living through this type of scenario next semester. The second thing I want to talk about are actually like feedback that I got from the students. Something that I heard, which was honestly pretty surprising coming from high school students, is how much they want to push the procedures and how mandatory it should be. A lot of the students who are debating on whether or not to go back on campus are very scared for their health and our health in general. So having these procedures be super mandatory, be super pushed, be super strict, and have consequences to anyone who violates procedures and puts others at risk is something that students find very, very important, and just the health aspect in general. The third thing is bandwidth. This is something that I saw from students who take electives like leadership or band. Having a good internet connection is so important in those classes. Having the ability to talk to other students without internet breaking them apart, or having like this same sound length or whatever it should be in those classes is very important to the students, because it's also part of not only their learning, but their connectivity to other students and other classmates in those said classes. Another thing is pushing flex. Flex office hours, club time have been so important to the students. If anything that we learned from having class in online and during this time is how important flex is to students. I feel like that is the one thing that has always gotten positive feedback. That is something that students always want and will forever need because of how important it is for us to have time to not only talk to our teachers, to get help, to prepare for whatever's coming next, and to have time where they can study, knowing that they can talk to their teachers anytime and they don't have to wait to send an email or wait for something to be sent back to them is so important, is so valuable to the students. So if we do go back on campus, making sure that flex and these types of opportunities where students can reach out to their counselors and teachers are constantly still being pushed and still on these schedules. And the last thing I want to talk about is just I'm very, very happy with how the board, how everyone in the committee has reacted to this issue. I feel like as a student, and all of my fellow students have felt heard, whether or not we want to stay online or go back to campus. As long as we know that a schedule is being made, people are looking out for us, and listening to our concerns is very, very reassuring to us. Yeah, that's all. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. I'm going to let Ms. Sharma, if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everybody. I just had a few things to say. I just one of my big concerns was when we talked about the survey. I had kind of noticed that the numbers seemed pretty low on the survey. Like 3,000 students really wasn't a lot of people to respond. 3,000 students or families wasn't a lot. And I definitely think that we need to get the rest of the district's voices heard, just because people could have really missed the survey. I know it was out for a good amount of days, but I think that we need to offer better resources maybe to get more families' opinions heard. Also, what Kristen said, I think it's important to know that the students are very willing to take all the precautions necessary just to kind of get back on campus. Yeah, distance learning is not working out for a lot of people. Everybody's just kind of submitting assignments as they're due, and it's really hard to kind of learn. So I think that in-person learning, any kind of in-person learning is best. And that's definitely something that we should continue to push for, but also we do have to respect the color tier and everything that's happening. Oh, one concern that I had was that when and if we do go back to in-person learning, definitely having the same amount of resources available for the students who want to continue with distance learning, because students at home might feel like students in person are getting more resources because they're in person being able to communicate with the teachers. So I think that that's definitely something to remember, that students at home are getting the same amount of attention from teachers as in-person students would be getting. And lastly, I just wanted to thank everybody for really putting all hands on deck for this. I know this is a very challenging topic to talk about, and it's just really, as a student, I really appreciate all the hard work that is going into this to get us back on campus. So thank you.
So thank you. More input. And now as we go to the board members, your opinions and give direction to the superintendent on what to do next, what's next in the process. Mr. Land.
Okay, first I want to thank the student board members for bringing up what they've done. They actually touched on a few of mine. I also say that survey, you'll have to take it with a grain of salt because of the numbers. And one that I wanted to point out was, it was a low on your list of less important was about lunches and nutrition, but that's probably for most of the people that isn't a concern, but for the ones that are a concern, it's a huge concern. So it's really hard to look at data like that and say, let's use that data in some concrete way. So I wanted to take some caution with that. Talking about also what Ms. Sharma had talked about with the it's not working. I think for some it is, and for some it isn't. And we still have to push for getting people who really need it to be on campus. So keeping that in mind, I do appreciate the phases. I do appreciate the push for those phases to come in. I think it's a concrete plan. I'm glad it's going to happen. And I think we need to keep pushing for that. I think in phase one, we need to have teachers start coming back to know that it's in a safe environment and that protocols are being followed. I loved Ms. Yu's comment about what is the ramifications if people aren't following the rules. That's adults as well as kids. There needs to be a concrete plan for if students are not wearing their masks, if they're not doing their social distancing, what are the consequences? Those are very real things in this environment. It's not going to change. We're going to go from purple to orange to red and all over the place for a while. This is not going away. Yes, a vaccine's coming, but we are stuck doing this till June, at least until even further past that. So I want us to really be able to say, what is a good comprehensive plan that we can initiate? I really appreciate the work that has been done. And I'm going to comment on a few micro issues that were brought up. The discipline, thank you, Ms. Yu, for bringing that up. Also, I do appreciate the AB live streaming. I think we need to support that. I'm glad that the budget for that is going to be in place, because I think it is important to have that as the choice. I appreciated Ms. Yu's idea about flex time. That helps with the asynchronous or synchronous time on that Monday that was brought up in the slide that Dr. Kempke put across. One of the concerns that came up was about masks. I totally understand that. From an elementary school perspective, teachers can't teach phonics without having a plastic shield over versus a regular mask. So there is this option to have these plastic shields with drapes that are connected that would make it easier for certain students to wear and actually see languages and dialogue going across. I do appreciate the stuff about daycare and putting daycare support in for our community and for employees. I think that's important, in working with our partner districts. I think we've done that in my own campus, where we have teachers on campus. We also have students on campus for their families. We've provided for it through daycare and supports. I think cameras, we already brought up that. The phases, I do think the phases are well put together. I think we might need to adjust how that's going to be implemented if and when, and just have a very concrete plan of what it's going to look like. I'd like to see what's happening on campus. I think if we dig a little deeper, what is it going to look like? Is how many people are going to be on campus? How is it going to go from period to period? I think the model is great. I think it's a strong model. I'm glad the committee put that together. But then how does it look on campus? How many kids are going to be on campus? How many are off campus? How is it going to work? Because we need to know what is going to be implemented. Right now we're in purple, and I totally understand that what things we can't do, but what can we do? Because we're going to have to pull the trigger. It's going to change, and we're going to have to do something and be ready to get kids back on campus. Interventions. I think that was very comprehensive, and Brian, I think you did a great job of presenting it, but what it tells me is we are not doing a great job. I hear, it tells me that we're going to have quadruple the problems that we usually do. So that just tells me even more that we need to bring kids back on campus. I will say that Dr. Kempke, when you brought up about how to bring kids back and incentives and just like the enrichment activities that could be done, I think that's a great way to start. And I think that's a positive way to start. So I still think that needs to be implemented in one of the earliest phases. So overall, I think a really good job, but I am pushing for making this happen sooner than later.
Linda, Ms. Leach-Dwyer, please unmute yourself.
I don't want to, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I don't want to repeat anything Greg said. I would like us to be aggressive in bringing, obviously, people back to campus, and as best we can, as safely as we can. I like the clear masks, and I kind of wonder, I know a child in the school, and the whole school has clear masks in elementary school, and I'm just wondering if that is something that could be the seeing while you speak. I think is important in many aspects of education and communication. I think it'll be good for students, and it would help them keep the mask on if they're using a clear plexiglass, because they'll feel like they're actually seeing each other, where with the mask, you barely see the eyes. And if you have glasses, you see even less. So I'd really like to look into doing the plexiglass. The other piece about that is that it can be cleaned really easily, from what I understand. They sanitize them, and and everyone gets their mask back the next day. So I kind of see that more as a shield thing that we maybe could provide to students. I'm a little concerned about the budget that has been put out because I don't think it's going to be enough. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but if we have robust attendance at summer school, if we have a lot of students who want those after hours adult school opportunities, programs that we run through there, we really need to, it's always good to have the money in the budget and then you didn't spend it. That's wonderful. But if you don't have it in the budget and then you really need it, then you're asking for more. So I really think, I don't know if you worked with Liz and her department on putting together numbers, but I would recommend that you go back and maybe make it a little richer, because it would be great if we had more students who wanted to participate in the extra programs, and particularly in summer school or intercession type programs. So we want to give everyone the opportunity that we can. I think I'm just going to quit for now because I know other people want to speak and we're on limited time.
Thanks. Peter.
Yeah, I guess, I don't want to repeat what other people have said because I largely agree with what's been said so far. I want to make a plea for people to really consider their, I guess, behavior and actions as we're going through this month and into the holiday break. If we're going to get out of purple tier, things are going to have to change. The trends are really bad. The use of the hospital space and the intensive care facilities are just really going up so rapidly, and we could get even more restrictions placed on us. And it's going to, if we can't get out of purple tier, we're just fantasizing here. So I really urge people to talk to your friends, really be careful in the next, the next 2 months. I think, everything we're hearing from at least the people that I pay a lot of attention to, Michael Osterholm, Lori Garrett, Bill Gates, some of those people that have been right very consistently over the last 8 months, they are very worried about where we're going. And the direction is not good. And so we need to change that if we're going to make progress here. Getting down to the specifics of the presentation, I do like, the fact that we're continuing to plan. I think we do need to get people back on campus, when we get into phase one. I would like to get Peninsula back in operation in phase one if we could. That would be my one tweak to the phases that I would make. I think it's a small school. It has room to socially distance. I think there's opportunity there to bring that school back earlier, and I think it's a school where we're having an engagement. We're really having engagement challenges in that school right now, and so when we do start implementing the phases, I would really like to get that school back in operation with in-person learning as soon as possible. I want us to continue. I think we're making good progress on the planning. I think we should continue to plan. I agree that the survey has some have some issues. Certainly the access to school meals, when you look at 72%, it almost exactly corresponds to the opposite side of that when you look at the economically disadvantaged population we have on the other side. Well, the economically disadvantaged population would say that access to school meals is pretty high priority for them. So if you look at 38%, the other 38%, it's a pretty important factor for that population. And that almost exactly corresponds to our population. I do have some concerns on the long-term learning loss and credit recovery. I don't like the idea of if you just pass the second semester, you get 10 credits. The idea, number one, the idea that the first semester, somehow automatically links with the learning in the second semester. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the fact that, you fail the first semester and you get a D in the second semester, and all of a sudden you got 10 credits, that doesn't strike me as a very good idea. That strikes me as dumbing down the curriculum. And, I don't like that idea. And again, there are all kinds of courses that, the first semester covers quite a different set of learning than the second semester does. And, I just don't like that particular bullet point. And I would agree with Linda when I looked at the budget. We don't have the detailed breakdown of the budget, but my first reaction to that budget was it might be a little bit light, given my sense of where we are in learning loss and the need to recover. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Thanks.
Mr. Griffin.
Okay, I'm just going to go down some bullet points here. I think we do need to plan. I'm glad to see the plan is getting refined. I think we need to continue to drill down. And I think what may happen as we drill down, we may come to a dead end, and we may have to backtrack and consider different alternatives. But I think we need to consider that, we need to go through that process to make sure we can get where we need to be at the end of the day. So if we think this is the path to get where we need to be, it may not be once we take a few more steps and we find there's some logistic issues, but we still need to keep going. I think there is an equity issue when you have the 100% synchronous option, and I don't know how you're gonna deal with it, but I think the committee should come back and work on that. Childcare is an issue, and I hope we don't go into the childcare business. And I don't know if it's 4Cs or whoever in the county kind of oversees childcare programs. We need to involve them and work with them to come up with some solutions, because we're going to have our hands full trying to keep schools going, keep them open, keep everybody safe. The one thing I noted there, families want consistency. I think, wherever that was in the presentation, they want consistency. They want some certainty so they can kind of know where they are, and they can kind of at least have a half idea about planning. So I hope you'll bear that in mind in terms of if you can do things, make sure it's consistent. It's, something they can follow, that they can have a schedule to live to. For credit loss or credit recovery, we need to really offer flexible solutions, because there are going to be a bunch of people that are going to be loaded down. They're not going to catch up right away. They're going to be bringing all this baggage into the next semester, and and they've probably got other issues. Some of them may need to work. Some of them may need to take care of family members and stuff. So I hope that we won't just come up with one solution, that somehow we can offer multiple solutions. And I guess like this evening class, what is that? One section of one class on each campus essentially is like one FTE for the whole district.
To be determined, Bob.
Okay. I don't think you have enough money there, but those are my comments. I think it's a good job. We just need to keep going.
And I agree with Bob. We're at a good job. And I think the his feedback, the board agrees the phases are pretty much on target, except maybe moving up Peninsula to phase 1 from phase 2. The dates made sense. We should lock them in and publish them, more to the community, whatever it was, January 16th, February 2nd, February 16th, something like that. I might be off a day or two. The community should understand phase 3 is February 16th. We should also say, I would advocate, and we should probably vote on all those dates next week. So we're locked in stone on them. But I would advocate, we have to say something if we're in purple. And then if we don't come out of purple to red till we can start February 1st, that does not mean we move phase 3 back. It means we move phase 1 to start at the same time as phase 2. And, I think, if it worked that way, we need to come up with the right language. We need to get our teachers back on campus and our students back on campus. And this is a solid plan to do that. And I think the board agrees with that. It's just a matter of giving it the final stamp, knowing that there's always going to be changes, that we have to work through all the safety measures and so forth. But once we have the this is how we're going to teach, and these are the dates we're going to open, these are when teachers have to come on campus, that's the big broad outline. And so I would encourage you to put that down in stone and have us vote on it next week. And so everyone can understand that. The other thing is the survey was interesting. Clearly, when you look at the results, certain demographics in our community took the survey and certain others didn't. And that just shows the issue that's with distance learning and working through the internet. The demographic, the ones who are falling behind, they just don't even have time for the survey, or they don't see it. They don't have the bandwidth. I don't know what, I'm not going to put it, but they're not able to do that. They're not able to stay, they're the ones less engaged. Their students are the ones less engaged. Their students are the ones falling behind. So I'm not criticizing the survey so much as that there's only so much you can get from a survey. I don't know that you can get those people. You have to find other ways to interact with those families and understand what they want. The other thing is that we have to think about when we look at distance learning, we have to get them in place, and the summer school program is going to be very important. And I know you just sort of outlined it this time, and you have time, but because you want to get the students on campus in January and February, but then you have to have a big learning loss summer school, and maybe instead of 2 12-week terms or 2 12-day terms, you need 3. I mean, and that's another 500,000. And I like the idea that you're going to open all campuses. It's my hope that at least by June, when we would have summer school, we can have teachers will feel very comfortable on campus with students. Hopefully by then, teachers will have been prioritized enough to be vaccinated. I don't know how many students will have been, but definitely we should hope that teachers, so that we can have more face-to-face interaction. The summer, it's going to be a lot different than previous summer schools. We're going to have, I looked at those numbers you gave us from last time on who's failing, who's not engaged, made some basic assumptions. My guess is by the end of, if those numbers held, you're looking at 3,000 students who need some sort of catch up, some number like that. And I could share my assumptions, but I would encourage you to bring some number like that to us next week. How many students are going to need catch up in the summer? Some might need just a class or two. Some might need 4 classes. I imagine math is going to be a big issue because what I've been reading is math doesn't do as well in distance learning. So, I mean, you need to make that summer program more vibrant, maybe last 6 weeks instead of 4 weeks, and get more students there. Basically, when we're done with school in May, we're going to be open June, July. I mean, you sort of said that it's going to be straight through till we reopen again in August. And hopefully with the vaccine, by the time we open again in August, we're back to a normal schedule. So that's our direction. Do you have anything? Questions?
Yeah, I'd like to, if I could, try to summarize, and I'm conscious of the fact that Mr. Land needs to leave very shortly. What I think I'm hearing from the board is that when we come back, we have our first interim at the next meeting, so that'll be an opportunity to talk about budget. We think we have some good ideas about what the learning loss is and what kind of remediation, but that won't be finalized until January. So the board needs to know that until we have grades in for the first semester, we're not going to be able to provide that much. But I know Ms. McManus is here and she's paying attention on the budget. The other piece that I think we heard from our community, and I think you're hearing in emails, is interest in activities for students if we can't get kids back. And so we want to talk a little bit about that, and we want to get your input on that. The discipline comment that Kristen made and other people followed up, we'll have information for you on the 10th. And then if it's the intention of the board to have folks come back, I would like to be clear, we're going to start that interactive process with staff members who, for whatever reason, cannot come back around the 16th, because that's a fairly involved process for Dr. Black. So I think we've got enough direction here tonight. We appreciate the input of the board, and we'll come back next meeting with a shorter report perhaps, and then you'll also be hearing from us on the 17th.
Okay, so what you're saying is we have a broad plan here of dates, times, phases.
Yeah.
Linda. You have to unmute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So during this conversation, I received a text, and I think other board members too, about the significance of the demographics. And so I don't know who it's from, but it could be that there is someone who wants to speak, but they haven't identified themselves. I have their phone number on, but it looks like we all got a text.
Yes.
I just want to make sure that
they're free to text us. Anyone can text.
Right, but if they want to,
if they want to speak, we've held to our rules, very clearly about when you sign in and so forth. We've had hundreds of people come to our meetings. If we bend our rules, we'll be in real difficulty.
And I don't have a problem with that. I just want to make sure that the person who's texting realizes that they can have the opportunity to speak at the meeting, and they don't need to text us. They can speak, which gets their message out to more people than just us.
Right.
So for the next meeting, I would encourage this person to speak out, because what they said could be significant.
Right. And the way to speak at a meeting is comments@smuhsd.org. And you need to send in the request to speak before we open an agenda item. Ms. Chalkley, did you get any requests to speak before this agenda item opened?
No, I didn't get any emails.
Okay. And we've been following that rule since some of my chaotic running of the meetings and grading in April.
Yeah.
It was a little more when we went 6 hours. And when Mr. Griffin becomes president, if he doesn't want to stick to the rule, that's his call. But yeah, I would encourage everyone to stick to the format.
Mark, I agree with you. I just don't want anybody left out who really wants to say something, and they can participate in the next meeting.
Right. Or in the next meeting after that.
Right.
And you can always email us too.
All right, I think we're done with this item, I believe.
Okay, there's one more item that has 2 minutes we have left, which is not board operations, scheduling a board retreat. Dr. Skelly.
I was talking to Mr. Griffin about this during agenda setting. I think what we're, and I've talked to our new board member coming in, Lihia Andrade Saniga, and we've talked about either a Thursday night on that, I believe it's whatever the first Thursday is in January, or the Saturday, the 7th. So if you could, I will ask, but you don't need to take the time now, but if you could look at those 2 dates, let Mr. Griffin and I know what your preferences are. And then if you have certain things that you'd like to see us do during that time, I think it would be valuable to know that. Mr. Land.
Can you have Charlene email us the 2 dates and with any idea, asking us for ideas?
Yeah, we will.
That'd be great.
I think that's it.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Bye. See you in a week. Meeting is adjourned.
Great.